Okay, hello. I guess we're live now. Got Mr. L in the background here. All right. Hello to everyone. We're still getting people in. Oh, good. All right. All righty. Let's hope for a good internet day. If it gets bad like it did last week, I was so frustrated last week. But if it gets bad like it did last week, I think we'll change it to we'll change our live demo maybe to a Tuesday when my daughter doesn't have any classes on Zoom, and you know, maybe the broadcast will be better, because I think that made really all the difference between. I mean, I never have perfectly clear demos, but last week was horrendous. So hopefully we can get through this okay. So you guys let me know what you see on your end, and if it's a problem, just let me know. All right. Okay. So today what I want to do is show you all how to turn dried metal clay scrap into usable clay again. Now I'm talking about raw clay, the raw dried clay, not anything that you fired already. If you fired it and it's not what you liked, you can always turn it in to one of the metal reclaiming companies, and do it that way. But if you've got the clay, a lot of times there's projects that didn't turn out before you fired them, or they broke, or some such reason, or you had just a little bit of leftover scrap. You can turn that all back into usable stuff again. So I guess, oh good, things are looking good. Good. Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep on going. And then I bought a couple of different things from Cool Tools that I wanted to show you after I show you the clay rehydrating part, and just show you a couple of new things to enable you some more. So, all right. So what I use is I have a coffee grinder. I bought this a long time ago, to grind beans, but we don't do that anymore. So I'm using the coffee grinder that I had. But I think that you could probably find these like at a resale shop or someplace like that, if you wanted to get one and not spend, the money on a new one, because they're a little pricey. At least they were when I bought it, so maybe they've come down. I don't know. Or something comparable to this. Or you could use a mortar and pestle. Now, this is a really teeny one, but I bought it years ago before I started cooking a lot, and I thought, boy, this would be great to mush up my garlic, so that's really what I bought it for. But then I found a garlic press, which was way easier. So anyway, so I had this because I kept it around because it was cute, but it is actually usable if you just have a small amount of clay. You can mush it that way. But I would rather use the coffee grinder. It's faster, quicker, and it's very efficient. So what I have is a jar that I have some dried pieces of projects that weren't very successful, and I just keep all that stuff in a jar until I have enough to process, and then I grind it all. So this is really a very quick, easy demo. So what I'm going to do is just put it inside. Let me change the camera around. All right, I'm going to put it inside the coffee grinder. You could wear a mask if you like. It does create some dust, so that's something to keep in mind. And put this on here and give it a whir. there's still some hard bits in there, so I'll try this a little bit longer. And it seems like I did not put my sifter on the table, so I need to go get that. So hang on just one sec, please. Oh, luckily it wasn't far. All right. So I'm just using an enamel sifter. I think this is, I'm not really sure the size, but it's fine, but it's not as fine as that little tiny red one, which is the next size smaller. So I'm using that to sift out any chunks that did not get pulverized. So probably the best thing that you could do is work on a sheet of paper, and probably magazine paper would be best because it's a little bit slick. And I'm going to get this powder that came around the edge. And there are definitely some sizable pieces in here that did not get mixed. So what I'm going to do is, well, the smarter thing, I guess, would be to pour it back in a larger container. Get all those bits out, crumbs. And then I have another empty container that I'm going to sift any pieces that did not get mixed well. And just kind of give it a little shake over the jar, and you can kind of see some of the chunky pieces are still in there. You don't want any chunks at all in the clay that you're going to rehydrate. If you do that, you're going to end up with lumps in your clay. They're not going to soften up. You know, if you think they might soften up being in with the moist clay, it doesn't happen that way. So the stuff that did not get, there's just a lot still in there. So I'm going to put that back in the coffee grinder. If the coffee grinder doesn't do it, then I will take it to the mortar and pestle and smash it that way. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, you know, it could be a dedicated sifter. I can't say that I have done that, but you can rinse these off and use them again. But I mean, if you wanted to keep it as a dedicated sifter, you could, Jennifer. All right. So stick those back in there. And I'm going to give it a whir, but I have a feeling that it's just not enough to really chop up. Maybe. Nah, it's just kind of spinning. It chopped up a little, but it's still spinning. All right. All right, I'm going to stick it in here, and we'll see what happens. That's one nice thing about metal clay is that is you really don't have any waste if you turn this back into usable clay again. This is helping. Then I'm going to use distilled water to rehydrate it with. And I'm going to use a spray bottle to spray little bits of water in at a time, because if you get it too wet, you have the issue of having to keep it, having to dry it. So, and that can take some time. But what I like to do is not rehydrate all of the dry powder at once, so that I do have a little bit in reserve that I can add to it if I've made my mixture too wet. Well, this did pretty well. That's just a little bit left in there out of those out of those chunks that I had. Actually, this is a nice little size mortar and pestle for this amount of clay. If you had a lot, you might want a little bit bigger. If you have big chunks of clay, like say you had a bigger pendant that didn't work out, I would snap that all up, break it all up in pieces, and then put it in the coffee grinder, just so that it chops up finer, faster. All right, that looks pretty good. There's a little bit stuck in here. Also, having a little spatula is nice. I don't remember where I got it. Maybe Rio or Eurotool or someplace. It's only a couple of bucks. I tried a plastic knife, but it gets stuck in the little ridges. So this, you can scrape off everything real well. Okay, that did great. There are only a couple little particles in there that didn't quite make the cut, but I will save those and put them in my other batch. So now I have a bunch of nice, fine, usable clay powder. And then I'm going to pick up my paper, and I'm actually not going to put this in with my fine that I just ground up, because there might be a couple of hard particles in there. So when I've got this labeled as silver clay scrap on here, and then usually I mix up a portion and keep it in one of these cups too, and I have a sponge at the bottom, and put it in some saran wrap, plastic wrap, and keep it moist that way. But it doesn't stay, at least in my experience. The clay will develop mold, even if you've used distilled water. It will develop mold after a week or two in the container, the moist clay. That's actually not a problem. You can mix it back in your clay. It's going to just burn off whatever fuzz has grown on there. I mean, if it's a lot, you can kind of gently scrape it off if it grosses you out. I've done it both ways. When I've had bigger patches of mold, I will scrape it off, because I just think it's kind of gross. But if it's just a little bit, like little dots, I just mix it all in, and it honestly has not made it a difference at all. I'm going to look for questions. I think I've got a couple of them here. Rhonda asks if you can use a kitchen sifter or should it be an enamel one. You know, I don't know how fine the kitchen sifter is. It might be usable, but you know, that's kind of a big item. I like the fact that this is small. It can fit in a smaller jar. But it, you know, it might be usable, Rhonda, you know, if you want to try it. Patty, for anyone who likes Sue's Little Burrows, Potter has the dies in stock today. Well, how about that? Thank you, Patty. Yeah, they don't always have everything available when you want it. So yeah, my little burrows, my little pins. I love these guys. Anyway, thanks for that, Patty. Ruth says, I have a bunch of base metal clay that is just cracking and crumbling. Appreciate this. You mean not base metal clay? You mean, I mean, I don't know what that would be. Just regular metal clay, right, Ruth? Yeah, any brand is okay. I mean, should be able to do this just fine. Like I've mentioned before, I primarily use art clay silver because that's what I learned on and I like it. I like the results that I get. But I'm sure any brand of precious metal clay is just fine. I think a lot of us tend to use the same things that we learned with. You know, and as long as I'm not unhappy with it, I have no reason to try anything else, but you know, whatever. And honestly, I have mixed, my friend Deb does PMC. She uses PMC brand, and she was over one day and we were doing the clay, and she had PMC and I had art clay, and we mixed it together and made new clay, and it was just fine. We had absolutely no problem with it. So you know, I don't know. I mean, that's just a thought. I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm just saying we didn't have any problem with it. And Ruth, you said it was bronze clay. Okay, I have absolutely no experience with the bronze clay, so I don't know. I don't see what it would hurt. You know, I don't know why it wouldn't work, but I would think it would be just fine. So if you try it, please let me know how your results were. Okay, so I am going to get to rehydrating the clay now. I'm going to move this paper out of my way. And like I said, I like to reserve a little bit of the dry clay because, you know, I kind of look at it like it's like flour dough or something, you know, and you know how you add flour in as you're kneading. Well, that's kind of how I do it. I don't think everybody does it the same way, but you know, to each his own. All right, so back here. So I'm going to do a couple of sprays in here. Get my little spatula. And just start small, you know, just start little bits at a time so you don't overdo it and make it too wet. The first time I did it, it was so wet and I didn't have any extra dry powder. So I just had to let it sit for a while until it dried up a little bit and became more usable. All right, so it's kind of like probably as much water as I want to put in this. If you can kind of guess by that. And then I'm going to take one of my Teflex sheets and a little bit of hand balm and lightly butter my sheet here and my hands. All right, so the clay doesn't stick to my hands so badly. It does stick a little bit. Sometimes I joke when I'm playing with clay, when I'm teaching, and show, my hands that have all this clay on there, and I'll say, well, that's about $5 worth of clay you've got on your fingers right there. And you want to use your clay in a project, not on your hands and washing it away. All right. And then any leftover little bits in there, I can scrape that out later and put it in my scrap jar. So that actually feels pretty good. If I wanted to make it a little bit stiffer, I could just lay a little bit of that powder out and knead it in there. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is take a little piece of plastic wrap. Okay, and I'm going to put my clay in here. And I'm going to work it a little bit. Roll it. This way we're sure that we're incorporating that clay, getting it all back in there, rehydrated properly. You see, that's a nice consistency of fresh clay now that you can use however you want. So that is it as far as rehydrating clay. And then if you weren't going to use it right away, you could wrap it up in a little piece of plastic loosely and put it in a jar with a piece of sponge, a wet sponge underneath it. But if you have to keep the clay package open just a little bit this is a hunk that I've got that I'm keeping moist. But I leave it open a little bit so that it can get the moisture from the sponge, from the wet sponge. Okay, so let me show you a couple of neat things that I just got from Cool Tools USA. Because you need really fresh clay to use that, to use these little items. These are, I can see that this looks a little bit light. I don't know why we have so much light in the video. Let me see. Tammy, do you ever use anything to keep your clay from sticking to your work surface? Is there something like slip or something? Yes. Cool Slip is what I use to put in my molds when I'm working with them. And then I use a hand balm that I got at Art Clay Silver, but Cool Tools USA sells a hand balm too. That's important. You need to keep your hands lubricated when you're working with clay so it doesn't stick to your hands, because let me tell you, it sure will. So these are little impressions, silicone impression thingies that make little dots, like like your silver balls and different things, only they're just like half domed. And they're really cool that you can use these as embellishments for your clay projects, or even just regular sheet metal projects too. You can add these on there. So it makes all these cool little, hopefully you can see this okay, all these cool little pieces. Can you see that? They're sliding around here. Let me see if I can position the camera, or maybe I'll just pour some out. No, I won't do that because then I'll be getting them all over the place. All right, so say like these little rings, and then there's little balls, little half-domed balls in there. Yeah, the glare is kind of bad, isn't it? Is that any better? Maybe you can see inside the box now. Yeah, you can see the different little parts. Okay, so these are all little metal clay rings, little elements that you can make to embellish your pieces. And when they fire, I fired a couple of them just to show you. Of course, they're going to shrink. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. But these are fired. So let me see. I'm checking with the computer to see if you can actually see these or not. You can't see them like that. Oh, for Pete's sake. Why do we have so much glare? Bear with me a minute. I don't know why the screen is so light. There's always some technical issue. Okay, so maybe you can see that there. Well, part of the problem is that my whole studio is filled with lights. So, but you can see from that brief moment what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's see here. If my camera doesn't fall out of the holder, we'll be lucky. Okay, so anyway, you get the idea. They're fired little silver rings and little dots that you can actually form patterns and stuff with if you wanted to solder them all in place. There's lots of fun things that you can do with that. Cool Tools USA, as I mentioned earlier, has a video on how to do this, but I just wanted to show you as long as I've got some fresh clay. And the key is having very moist, fresh clay. You do not put any any mold release in these. And then you need a clay scraper. Okay, so what you do is take your clay and I'm going to take the clay scraper, and this takes some practice. Okay, I am by no means expert at this. I've only tried it a couple times. I've only had it like a week or so. So I've pressed that in, and then you come at a different, little more upright angle and scrape the top. Now some filled well and some did not, so I'm going to see if I can go back over and refill those ones. And then you scrape this off on the edge. And that's better. And then you can put these aside. If you have any little places that didn't fill in totally, you can kind of press them a little bit, and sometimes you can even add a little bit. I pulled that one right out with my finger. Okay. You could add a little bit of water and kind of just get some of the excess off so they're cleaner later. So what I do is I will take this over to my dehydrator, I mean, and in about 5 minutes it'll be dry. But if you're drying it just in the open air, I would give it about an hour or so, and they should dry. They're so small that they'll dry pretty well. But the key is having fresh clay to use in those little molds. Okay, so I just thought it was kind of a neat thing, and as long as I was making fresh clay, that I would go ahead and demonstrate that. And I don't know that I'll ever use big rings like that, but I'll put some in here. Okay, smush that down. And then stand this upright and pull that out. That's pretty cool. But like I said, it takes some practice. The first batch that I did, I thought, oh, I don't like this at all. This is horrible because I just got it everywhere. But I stuck around with it a while, and I got some decent ones out of there. But if you try to do this with harder, stiffer clay, it just doesn't work well. See? That came out all right. Yeah, I don't know if you could set stones in these or not, Jennifer. That would be a great idea if you could. Okay. And then one thing I failed to mention, I didn't think of it, when I was working with the metal clay and the Potter impression dies. Of course, it doesn't matter which impression die you're using, I guess. You could use the silicone ones or not. But I just got this bee in from Potter's that I've been waiting for a while. And he put it back on release about a week or so ago, so I was able to get one. And I wanted to say that you could put a pattern on the back of your pieces too, that I didn't really cover that when I did the other demo. So what you can do is put your clay out here and then grab one of these texture molds or a texture mold. Just give it a light spritz because that stuff gets everywhere. And you can put that on the back. And, you could roll this or you could just press it. If you stay steady, you could just press it too. But you could use a roller and press it out. And that way you get a design on both sides. So, but I'm going to trim most of this off. But still, instead of just having a plain back, you can have something that's a little pretty. I'm going to try one of these because I haven't tried it. It still might be more clay than I want on there. But I can just trim that. Oh, and there's one other thing that I wanted to show you too that I almost forgot about. And that is, I'm probably not going to keep this as is, but I wanted to show you this other little item that I got from Cool Tools. And this is a hole maker. The cork is just in there to keep this little point from stabbing you. But it has 3 different size hole makers on here, which I probably would never use this little tiny one. But the larger one I think I'll get a lot of use out of it. Remember in my other video, I recommended using a coffee stir stick, a little straw, to make the hole, and this makes a really nice hole every time, and then you can poke the piece of clay that was in the hole. You can poke that out. So if you can see that, it makes a nice little hole. So if I wanted to keep this, oh, and here's the back. And you probably can't see that either because of the glare. So every week, folks, it's something. The connection's good this time, but now we have glare. So, you know, I just don't understand. I don't understand. These little clay scrapers are nice too. They come in pretty handy. They make a nice clean cut. They are a little sharp, so you have to be careful, just like anything else. But anyway, you get the idea. I'm going to play with that beam when we're done here. All right. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Do you guys have any questions or anything about clay and clay materials and tools and different things like that? Can you show the spray bottle you're using on the pot or die? That was the cool slip. You can also use like olive oil in a spray if you wanted to use that, if you didn't want to buy a special spray. But you know, I started using this and I really like it, so I've just kind of kept up with it. Let's see. Yeah. All right, I'm just checking over. Can you recycle your fired metal clay mistakes along? Yes, you can with your fine silver. Yes, you can, because it is essentially fine silver. So yeah, you can put that in the same scrap. Hey, Carol. Okay, can you show the half ball mold thing again? Yes. Hopefully you can see it with this glare. This has got the pieces in it. It has 3 different sizes. These are itty bitties, but you know, I could see where they would have their uses in certain designs. Oh, good, you can see that good. All right, I'm checking on my laptop as I'm talking to you. Yeah, that's 3 different sizes. The same with the rings, the open circles, whatever you want to call them. There's 3 different sizes. They have a whole bunch of different patterns available if you want them. They're like $15.95 a piece, so I only picked 2 because I thought I would try those out. I figured these would be the ones that I would use the most, and I wanted to see if I would like them. But they have a demo on their website of the gal that invented these, and she's done some really cool projects with it. So if you get the opportunity, if you're interested, check them out. It's cooltoolsusa.com. Tammy says she can't wait to see what I do with the new bee. I'm so happy you showed us this. I have some dried out metal clay. Thought it was wasted. No, it's not. It just really isn't. You save all your scraps from all your metals, whether it's sheet, silver, or copper, or whatever. Save it all. The only places that I know that you can recycle your copper is like at metal recycling plants. And I have taken mine in periodically, maybe twice a year. I'll have enough scrap that warrants, you know, or that it's worth it to bring it over there. And you know, I might not get that much, maybe 20-30 bucks for a big box of scrap. But hey, you can turn around and buy new metal with that. So I save all of that stuff. And like I said, the dry clay you can reconstitute and make new projects. I mean, I have a nice big lump of clay here that that I've saved. This is probably 50 grams of clay or better, maybe around 50 grams of clay, and that makes a lot of projects. So I did order their clay hydrator because I didn't have one. Like I said, I was just using a jar and put a wet sponge at the bottom of the jar and then loosely wrap my my clay in saran wrap just so it can get some air to get the moisture. But this other jar has like a sponge on top and a sponge on bottom, and I thought maybe that would be a little bit more I don't know, easier to work with. So I've got that coming. And then I got let's see, I got 2 molds that they sell. They sell a whole bunch of antique molds. This is a bee on a leaf, and this is a moose because moose, I like moose. But I made these last week, and I'm going to do something else with them. Although they would stand alone just fine, but this is the bee on the leaf, and I thought I'd take a leaf pattern and I roller printed that out for the background. Although this would make a cute smaller pendant, for someone just like that if I put a hole in it, which I didn't because I figured I would solder this onto something. But then I made the little moose. And that, I think, too, would go, not on this big disc, but I'll probably put that on something. But, I mean, this would make a nice button size if you wanted to make a button, or even a ring. You could put that on the top of a ring. Be a cute size. But they have a ton of different molds that you can pick from. But, here's the clay shrinkage, because this is the leaf with the bug, and here is the finished product. You can see the margins around here, how much that's shrunk. That's normal. It's about 10%. But can you solder onto PMC? Yes. Yes, you can. It's wonderful, all the things that you can do. It's so versatile because you can use this with, incorporate this with your sheet metal projects, put little embellishments around your bezels, different things like that. There's a ton of stuff you can do. So here's a better comparison of the shrinkage, in case you were wondering. All right, so I'm not sure what I'm doing next week. It might be toggle clasps. I'm kind of thinking that that's what I'll do. I've got a few different things lined up. I'm just not sure what order I will present them in. So if you have any other questions or concerns, whatever, just you can post them on the group page, and I'll address them as soon as I can. And we'll go from there. So we got through this without any big video problems other than the lighting. So it's always something. I guess it's just the law, Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching me, and I'll see you next week and on the group. So post the stuff that you make. I enjoy seeing everything that you guys make. I truly do. All right. Have a good week. Bye-bye.